Allow me to beg your indulgence for one moment. This is the artist formerly known as Damian Sandow, now known as Aaron Stevens, and you're listening to the Talk and Roll Express with Lewis, Thomas, Oliver, and Cameron, covering everything from murder mysteries to union stabs and always getting the job done straight from the enclosed pool area. You're welcome.
Right, guys, the Nitro of July 6th, 1998. Initial impressions of this episode.
Okay, let me ask one quick, because I don't want to I can tell Cammy's going to have a lot to say to this, especially the fact that he's not been on the way either. Good to have you back, Cammy. I love the new gimmick, brother. But I'm just going to say something quickly regarding this. Have you ever been watching any special shows on the network where they have house shows but they film them?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what this was like. This was like a glorified house show. Not even a glorified TV, but a glorified house show. Nothing mattered apart from the main event. And it showed. And it just looked really out of place in the 60,000 seater stadium.
It's kind of, so for me, like, I have not lost touch with wrestling. I've merely lost touch with how to join into this podcast. Clearly, I've been watching a lot of old World Championship Wrestling where it's bare bones. There's a plywood podium in front of a guy and a half-assed studio crowd, terrible ring, and with that they create magic. WCW in this iteration have the production value of just something inconceivable, and this is all they're able to actually come up with, kind of thing. It's weird. I think maybe what we're seeing is what happens like when we're talking about 85, 86, and then people like Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA are being given free reins to do what they want. They come up with magic. But when we give Scott Hall, who is struggling to keep it together, Buff Bagwell creative freedom, this is what happens. I feel personally like I think we need to find a middle ground between Vince's sort of micromanagement and 1986 World Championship Wrestling. Do whatever the hell you want, throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Because whatever this is just it's a difficult watch.
It is, and I actually I don't even mind WCW in this era. Like, there's so much talent, there's so many great matches they have. And we've watched some of the kind of old Nitros and that as well, and they've been great. And I was watching WCW, I think it was from 96, maybe 97. It was Clash of the Champions or something like that, and it's a great show. But this, you're just like, there was no real thought put in anything. It was just like, I mean, this was almost 3 hours long, and everything was just kind of hurtled towards the finish line.
I'm not denying it.
I don't think it would matter as much if it was like 10, 20,000 people in the arena. But the fact that it looked like this big pay-per-view event, the content didn't back up the aesthetic.
There's definitely a bit of like they just done it because they could. Like it's an FU to the other camp kind of thing. Like this is our Monday night program. Compare it to your Monday night program. We're live, you're not. Blah blah blah. Usual crack. But I think I'm definitely not dissing all the talent because it's clear there's too much talent going on. They're faced with the same problem that Vince was when he bought WCW. But what Vince did was we introduced his micromanagement, 2 separate brands, which I know they claim to have came up with the concept of that with NWO and WCW, but they're not pulling it off here. It's just like, NWO at this point, really, like it might be a brand that they can sell, but it's not a brand that they can book and manage properly. Kind of thing. It wasn't the way it was with SmackDown and Raw. Like if you look at a network special now, Bischoff claims it was always supposed to be. I don't personally believe that because there's not a lot of evidence of it other than the Sold Out show, which was terrible, by the way. If you ever go back and watch that as well, I think what you're seeing here is you've got all this talent and they're just trying their hardest to make sure all of them have a platform to do what they want to do, which is nice in theory, but it means it's just a lot of people waffling on, like just trying anything to stand out, and it just ends up getting muddy and convoluted.
Yeah, you're right, and it's we're just touching this quickly because this is something you're having just now, and people will say the problem with the WWF, or WWE, sorry, is that not everyone has a purpose. There's too much focus in the main event and not enough effort given to undercard. And I agree with that. You know, you need to have your kind of like your starters, your appetizers before your main course. AEW have that WCW booking policy of everything matters. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's going to have some amounts of airtime. And you're right, I'm just kind of like, okay, but I don't care. And I don't care the same about the second match as I do the main event, guys. That's just how it is, unfortunately. You don't care about everybody the same amount. Otherwise, it's just flat. And for me here, it's like, yeah, you've got this kind of great talent and they're trying to do something for them all. Story-wise, when it came in the match, it's like, you got 5 minutes, you got 5 minutes, you got 5 minutes. And I was like, Jesus, have a bit of a longer match and give the guys a chance to entertain at least.
This episode actually gets brought up in the Rise and Fall of the WCW documentary that they did 10 years ago, and it's Jim Ross, I believe, that says it just showed WCW's ignorance. They sold out something like 39,000 tickets for this episode. It's in the Georgia Dome. Had they wanted it or had they advertised it well enough in advance, they could have sold out something like 100,000 tickets. Like, it could have done that kind of business. But it just shows how kind of short-sighted they were.
Well, it's not just that. It should have been a pay-per-view, first and foremost. They should have had pay-per-view buys. Instead, it's on Nitro, and they're just getting ratings to say, as Cameron was saying, we beat you. But at what cost?
Yeah, because I mean, everyone thinks that Austin winning the belt at Mania 14 meant it was effectively game over. It wasn't. There was swaps and roundabouts there where they traded ratings. It wasn't until I believe early '99 with was it Mick Foley ended up going over on the Rock and that was when it WWF at that time never ever looked back. But yeah, this was still very much a knockdown drag out, no pun intended, between these two companies.
Yeah, and it's you kind of mentioned the kind of NWO brand type idea as well, and it's like I do believe this to an extent that it was trying to kind of do two different things because apparently when it had Thunder, Bischoff and that was they didn't want Thunder, they never wanted a second TV show, but it was basically like the execs at Turner were greedy, we're doing well, let's do it doubly well, and it's like I don't know if that's going to work, and it didn't work. And it was talking having Thunder being the NWO show, but you're right, it didn't make any sense to have a WCW show and an NWO show when these are your two biggest rivals. How can you separate them into two separate brands? Really, it's not Raw versus SmackDown. You're right, it's totally different. It was never going to work, even if it was the plan or not, or it's retrospective booking. I don't see how it would work.
I don't know what I've missed, but I definitely know for a fact this is the first time I've ever put over Vince over anything at this point. But he's clearly looked at that same situation and at least for a short period of time managed it well with the separation of the brands, giving people more room. Ironically, not to do what they want to do, still to do what he wants to do, but they still had more room to sort of like flourish, kind of thing. It's clear they I don't understand. Like, I'm interested to see what was on the B show that week because I can't feel like they could have had much left because it just seemed like they trotted everybody out, and I wouldn't want to see what's left over from that. Being that the low points of this card were just so questionable. There was a lot that didn't have to be on here, a lot of fat to be trimmed. You could have had a couple of triple threats, fatal four ways if you were really that desperate to have certain talents on that night, kind of thing. Like for instance, Canyon versus Raven. Like, stick them in with someone else. I don't care who, to be honest with you. Maybe not the Malenko and Booker T match because that was great, and also because there was a story aspect to that, obviously. But yeah, like, what are we doing? Sort of, or Chavo and stuff. Like, you know, other than the fact that he kind of first broached some sort of hair match with his Uncle Eddie, which, by the way, man, that back and forth must have been going on for 2 decades at least. Like, but yeah, like, it just all seemed a bit pointless.
Right, shall we actually start dissecting the episode piece by piece? Because I've got 17 chapters here to cover, so I'm hoping we can... it opens up with the Hogan promo, which is great, obviously. I said if there was one thing Nitro needed more openings of, it was NWO promos. He cuts the kind of the impassioned talk in the middle of the ring. By the way, can we just talk about Brother Brutai? I had no idea there was a point in history where he was just as big as Hogan.
Yeah. To the point that he can barely really move.
I think that was a problem he had before as well. But yeah, he goes in, he talks about how he's not got the respect. The match isn't happening because there's not enough money on the table. I was like, what are we doing here, Terry? Are we shooting or are we working here, brother? But yeah, no.
You see, I didn't mind this because, yeah, you're right, it's another NWO opening promo for Nitro type thing, but at least it was selling something.
Mm-hmm.
It was saying, I am not intending having this match. It's in the Georgia Dome. Right, it's in Goldberg's hometown.
Yeah, it's happening.
It's a 60,000 seater arena. There's no way the main event isn't going to happen. It doesn't matter how much you're watching Hulk Hogan and his politics and that, you know the main event's leading to this. But that's fine because sometimes wrestling's good when it's predictable. It gives you something to look forward to and it can be rewarding in that sense. So I don't mind Hogan coming out and saying this match isn't going to happen because it gives you a reason to say, well, I'm going to continue watching because something's going to happen that means this match does happen. It's not kind of case of, I believe Hogan, so I'm going to watch Raw.
I think, like, so for me, this period of the NWO with the Wolfpack also being there and it getting just a bit convoluted, one of the biggest parts for me was Hogan was actually the worst part of the NWO for me, personally. I think it's super interesting.
Did you see Brutus the Barber Beefcake standing next to him?
Well, that's a good point, Thomas, because I am a much bigger fan of the Booty Man than I am Brother Brutai. Or, of course, what was the other one? The Zodiac? Come on. Yes.
And also the underrated star of Mr. Nanny.
Or wasn't there one where he was the man with no name because he had amnesia? Did you that happened at one point not too long before this, maybe a couple of years. Anyway. Sorry, my point being, just because it sums up my whole feeling, and that means I don't have to repeat myself. Nash and Hall were the interesting parts of the NWO when it formed. They like Hogan being heel was really interesting, but when you watch those first promos, it was almost like Hall, really cool cutting edge. Nash, really cool cutting edge. Hogan, right, just hurry up because you're still cutting an 80s promo and it's a bit weird kind of thing. For me, like...
brothering.
Yeah, like it's not much has changed. At least he's trying. Like there was some, he always had better interactions as the heel with a crowd. He's terrible in Vignette promo kind of things. I just feel like at this point there's nothing interesting going on with the original NWO. The Wolfpack has got some interesting faces in it, but again they're not really doing anything. It's just I think personally, and this is going to be a theme for me throughout this episode, is the reason Goldberg was so over was because he came at the exact time when people were getting sick of the NWO, and even him acting against them was interesting enough. So if it should have been, the storyline should have been Goldberg defeats the NWO and then the NWO disbands, and then maybe they could have clawed back like some of that audience they would eventually lose, because a lot of this is just repetition at this point and it just goes on for too long, in my opinion, obviously.
No, I agree with some of that, and the thing that actually surprised me when I was watching this Nitro was I didn't realise that the NWO was split at this point. In '98, I was like, really? I thought it was later than this for some reason. But that just kind of highlighted to me as well how kind of like it was like a panic button. It was like, right, we need to do something for the NWO. Rather than trim the fat, let's split them and add more fat. I
know. It's just
especially in the black and white section where, I mean, at least the Wolfpack NWO has something kind of, they're a cool entrance music. That Sting was quite interesting. You had like Conan, Lex Luger to a lesser extent, but there was something quite interesting and fresh about them. And Nash leading them was pretty cool. But the black and white NWO, the OG NWO, just was filled with absolute jobbers.
Yeah. And mind Hall wasn't even there that much at this point either. Like he's obviously here tonight, but he's not. He's not, and even though he's there tonight, he's not really there. Exactly.
Right, getting into the first match. Obviously, very happy to talk about this. Dean Malenko versus Booker T, the Iceman versus one half of Harlem Heat. I didn't know any of the matches beforehand. Obviously, I literally just put out the episode on the network and let the magic unfold. And the minute I heard Booker T's music, I think I actually did the Churchill insurance dog. Oh yes,
I was going to say I actually did the Spinneroonie in my living room.
Yeah.
He's so over. Why did it take so long for him to get to the top of the card, and why did they do it when nobody cared?
I don't want to have conspiracy theories, but look who was
Look where we are, Cameron. When they zoom into that crowd, look who's talking. By the way, whenever they zoom into the crowd, you know how Vince always had plants talking to the camera? WCW didn't need any plants. Those people loved professional wrestling a bit too much. I mean, here's us doing a podcast 20, 30 years later, but those people, they've probably been doing one the whole time to an audience of even less than us.
These guys probably sit and watch Raw and don't like it, but they prefer AEW over Raw because AEW is real.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that they do the little interviews with people in the crowd, and I've never heard an accent quite as strong as the Atlanta, Georgia accent. That's actually more southern than any other American accent I've ever heard. There's people from like deep state Texas.
I'm pretty sure that Ray Charles is still legally banned from this state at this point. That's how racist Georgia is.
Yeah. But getting back to Malenko versus Booker, Jesus, that TV title did not look better on anybody else. That is his belt for all intents and purposes. Again, I wanted this match to go on forever, but of all people to ruin it, of course, this being a WCW episode, there's a run-in, there's an interference, somebody has to get their shit in. It's Jericho.
At least it was. Yeah, at least it was Jericho. You know what I mean? Like, he was interesting.
And Jericho and Malenko's feud during this whole time was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
I can't remember I can't remember the pay-per-view, but it was a Luchador Battle Royal, or the Cruiserweight Battle Royal, to see who would face Jericho. And they came down to two guys. I can't remember who it was, but that one was Juventud. They have a conversation in the ring, and Juventud eliminates himself. Jericho comes to the ring and is like, what the hell's going on? Mask comes off, it's Malenko.
Brilliant.
And the place just fucking, that's just incredible. And Jericho's like selling it like he's seen a ghost, you know, and like the crowd are hanging for the rafters. It was amazing.
Benoit clearly always had that shine. He was always mid to upper cards, but Malenko always found himself charged along the bottom. If it wasn't for this run, I don't think he'd have got signed to the Fed. Personally, this was like, if anyone to me says, you know, oh, I really like Malenko and blah, 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 my memory's not that great, I can't go, oh, watch January, blah, 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 in 1998. I say, just go watch his stuff with Jericho.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Watch any ECW stuff as well.
Yeah, even less so for me, though, because, I mean, he truly lived the gimmick of a stoic grappler at this point. Because, like, he's not saying a fucking word. No, that's how good Jericho is, by the way. He's having a feud with a man who has no retort to anything that he has to say. He's just there. He's managed to turn this walking action man into a superstar. And that's how good Jericho is. And that, again, probably why he was signed to the Fed too. And I don't think that was as far off as it was for Malenko at this point. But yeah, brilliant. Even the match with Booker T was fantastic. Again, it's a shame that he's on this lower end of the card. This was the true main event for me. And as you can imagine, the reason why the rest of this episode took a complete nosedive thereafter.
There's just so many high kicks in this match. Such great elevation. The bit where Malenko comes off the rope and Booker catches him and gives him the spine bust. Oh, it's so great, so great. The only thing, if I do have one complaint, I always hate in matches like this when they go for the finish. Like Booker T actually hits the scissor kick on Malenko, and as he's going for the cover, Malenko's still kicking, and they get a 1, 2, 3. I always hate that. Always that. Are you either out or are you in?
I think it's meant to be a bit more realistic because obviously, like a realistic scissor kick, but like a wrestler when they get pinned, like they're obviously not knocked unconscious, so like they're fighting against having their shoulders on the mat. But that doesn't make sense in a classic professional wrestler pin because you're just laying on top of them for the most part, kind of thing. But I think that's Malenko. I have to imagine his psychology is coming from because that was it for him. Was basically legit. Everyone he hanged out with at this point was actually an actual martial artist and a fighter and went on to do different things. But Malenko was just such a mark. He went, no. I must continue to show the cloverleaf to these thousands of uncaring fans until I'm finally over.
Moving on to Canyon versus Raven. Now, we can absolutely veto matches where there's not that much to talk about. There is a little bit to cover. Canyon coming out with the Mortis mask. I don't understand the context for that, or the backstory. Was he a part of Raven's flock, or am I just getting a wee little bit?
I remember the story vaguely. It was he kept trying to join Raven's flock, and Raven wasn't interested. But he was doing it, if I remember correctly, it was unmasked, and nobody knew who he was at the time because we'd all seen Mortis unmasked. It was this kind of mystery man trying to join Raven's flock. And then it was a cage match with DDP and Raven was handcuffed to the cage. ECW homage, basically. Mm-hmm. And this kind of like masked man came out of the ring in their kind of riot gear, took the mask off. It was Mortis, and everybody was like, "Why is Mortis here?" Took the mask off, and it was Kai. And people said, "Oh, that's a guy that's been like trying to join the flock for a while," and Raven keeps beating him up. So very convoluted.
Yeah, well, we have to explain the DQ rules of WCW, because apparently, you know, an interference is cause for bell ringing, but throwing a fucking chair at a man's head is not.
Was this not Raven's rules?
Was it?
I think every match in WCW was booked under Raven's rules, was essentially the same as ECW rules. And here's the thing about ECW: you could hit people with chairs, flaming tables, stab them, things like that. But run-ins did cause disqualifications.
There was a point. There was a point where they. Sorry.
I was going to say, the first time I seen that in ECW, I was like, "Am I seeing this right? Did he just disqualified? I have seen New Jack slash a guy for real, and this guy just got disqualified because Chris Candido ran out."
I can't remember when it was, but it was rough. It was later on in WCW where they were it was roughly like the Millionaires versus the
New Bloods.
The New Bloods, and at that point, like, even though this had already been a thing for a while, it's like they were trying to contextualize why no one was getting disqualified, and they just put it up to referee's discretion. And I'm just like, what does that even mean? It just means that you can just do what you want. That's just the way I've always, because that's kind of some of the stuff I've seen. That's just what I put it up to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, there's probably we're looking too much into it, but this is clearly designed for rednecks.
And this
ask these questions.
This is definitely a veto for me, to be honest with you. Just not interested. I wasn't at all. Let's talk about Judy Bagwell.
Well, the next thing we get is the return of Buff the Stuff in his hometown, apparently, of Atlanta, Georgia, and that he gets this. Why does he get hero's welcome if he's a bad guy? Like, I understand, like, the heels usually do get cheered in their hometown, but like the NWO, going by Hogan's opening kind of heat, like, they were pretty much hated at this point, were they not?
It looked like they were trying to turn them here.
Yeah, the Buff Bagwell thing's very strange. On paper, and I mean this literally on paper, Buff Bagwell looked like a star, maybe a mid-card star, but he looked like a star. He had a great look. He was a good-looking guy. He looked like a guy that should have had charisma. He looked like a guy that should have been good, but the problem is he had nothing attribute-wise in terms of depth.
He did have charisma, but as you've hit the nail on the head, he's no depth, like, at all. Like, I don't know. I like the gimmick of being wheeled in on a wheelchair by your ma. You know, like, of course, this is what would eventually does to the Judy Bagwell on a pole match. So we can't rule it out.
I'm so hankering. I so badly wish Ollie was here. He'd be making so many incest jokes right now. I really am.
The thing is, well, this was also kind of like art imitating life, in a sense that life started imitating art. When Buff Bagwell got fired for the Fed, and it was JR phoned up to ask about him, and his mum answered the phone and said he couldn't come to the phone or something. So yeah, the whole overprotective mother thing wasn't a gimmick. I don't even think this was supposed to be filmed. I think this was just accidentally shown on TV.
Look, my mom's coming whether you like it or no, so you better write her on the telly.
Was the Fed's excuse not by various agents in that his work rate just wasn't great in general? Like, well, that's true. That's even trying to sell him as a good guy is a bit really.
We've spoken about this before, but do you remember that time he came out and he had the match? This was at his thoughts as Vince Russo's when he got pinned. Then they put much of a fight up and he went to the camera and said, "Did I do a good job for you, Russo?" And it's like, wow, that was one of the worst storylines ever.
Mm-hmm. Can we just discuss the selling of the race car? There's this tiny little ad after the third match where they put the plug up where if you buy a Horton, you enter the competition to win a real race car. And as proof that they will actually give you a race car, they cut to a bit in the audience where a guy is next to a race car who won it from Arkansas. And Mean Gene actually says in passing, not sure you can use it in the streets. So what the fuck is the point in having it then?
Aye.
I thought I imagined that.
Aye.
Yeah, it's like a fever dream, is all I would say. And it's the fact that, like, you couldn't use it in the streets legally in civilized states. But hey, the people that kind of win this race car probably don't have rules of the roads. Yeah.
We're in Georgia, I don't know. I used to kind of like the carny of like WCW selling Harley Davidson, letting you win Harley Davidson motorbikes and Hulk Hogan sitting there cutting a promo on it and stuff. Like, I know it's out of place, but I feel like on reflection it was quite funny. I wouldn't mind it in modern wrestling, to be honest. A wee bit of hokiness.
Oh well, there is a terrible ad for the race car. However, it has one of the greatest ads later on for the you can win the Nitro party. Mean Gene will come to your house. Like, they actually show handheld kind of the JVC footage of like people actually going nuts, throwing like stuff in the house while Nitro's playing in the background. I'm like, fucking dudes rock. Like, how amazing is that? Like,
I love the idea of like the girls showing up, like they're the ones to knock the door, and the guy just like fucking clambers past them and goes, "Where's Mean Gene?" That would be me. I feel like right out the way.
He's sharing a double scotch on the rocks with
oh yeah, our party would be a bit classier. I'd get the girls to wrap up. They'd go sit, have a cup of tea somewhere, because they look like they've had a rough go of it.
Yeah.
And me and Mean Gene would just be sitting, having a bit of whiskey, discussing old times.
Oh, we never discussed Canyon versus Raven. There's 2 matches, 2 interferences. Perry Saturn runs in and ends up getting them disqualified.
The only person I want to put over is the table. For not giving way.
The table no sold. The table,
yeah.
that spot was absolutely brutal. Like,
he got open and he went, "That's not going to work for me, brother."
Yeah.
It's that strange kind of like wrestling irony, isn't it? That the things that fail are the one. If you put something for a table, it looks great and it doesn't hurt as much as bouncing off a table and it looks shit.
To be fair, that actually looked like an unbreakable table. Like,
it looked painful.
The legs, I was just like, that thing's not going to fucking give way.
It looked like one of those tables you get in like a primary school that are just absolutely solid.
Yeah, but with the reinforced metal bars underneath it, just to make sure it doesn't break.
Oh yeah,
the things you hit your knee against.
Inevitably, a child will climb on that table, so it needs to be reinforced type thing. And then they tried to put them through it. That was a cracked rib, if I've ever seen one.
Oh. Anyway,
get Raven out of here. I don't care. Next,
we've got the DDP and Malone promo in the middle of the ring. This is
which one?
The first one. It's not. It's just after the.
I don't even think this is the first time DDP runs out. By the way, does he not run out at one point and just say hello to the crowd with the commentators? That man has more entrances tonight than fucking the ring announcer. It's unbelievable.
It is incredible. However,
he's
it's
over.
Just after the second appearance of the Nitro girls. I think they made like 4 in total throughout the night.
Wasn't complaining about the Nitro girls.
Well, no.
Probably wouldn't have.
Did I complain?
I'm wondering what they're up to now.
3 of them are married. Like, Sharmell married Booker T. Whisper married Shawn Michaels, and I think there was another one though. Fuck, I've forgotten now. But yeah,
Kimberly was DDP's wife at this time.
Oh,
imagine being
Kimberly,
the other one.
DDP.
Imagine being the other one in Lewis's eyes
right
now.
Christ almighty.
And then not even getting mentioned. Anyway, sorry. DDP and Post Malone.
DDP and Post Malone in the ring with it. Hype up the match with Hogan and Rodzilla. Malone, he says about Rodzilla, Dennis Rodman, "I'm going to beat you like Madonna should have." No, because we really should have kept this above the waist, shouldn't we? I mean, Madonna is actually a victim of domestic abuse, so that's a bit fucking heavy-handed, is it no?
I know. And then there was that really horrible bit where, Malone goes to DDP, kind of like just taps him, like just, and then DDP goes, "Oh yeah," and then feeds him a line, and it's something like, "You're not just going to be a killer, are you?" And he goes, "No, I'm going to be a Rodzilla killer,
You could hear the
and then
screams
the
from
crowd goes silent.
Oh, aye, it's like I think to be fair, Malone was expecting this big whoa thing from the crowd after he said, "I'm going to smack the paint out of your hair."
The problem is, man, you're going up against A-Rod. The guy's about to win another like world championship with these baskets and hoops and shit. Like, I watched the Bulls documentary. Okay, I'm
we
up
all watched
to
the
date
last
on
one.
this. Yeah,
We all watched. They actually
And
have the NWO in the 10th episode.
yeah, but this is basically what it's referring to. Like, this guy, like, he was missing championship practice to go on the road with Hulk Hogan. So this is like the most legit celeb appearance maybe of all time, apart from Mr. T at WrestleMania 1. I would put number 2 A-Rod WCW.
Oh, I don't know. Tyson's got to be a. I know he started Wayne by that point, but it was the box office appeal to him. Actually made him. I get where you're coming from the Rodman final because he was still playing.
Yeah,
At his peak.
Look, it goes Mr. T, A-Rod, Tyson, and then Kevin Federline.
Who apparently was one of the most easiest and respectful guys to work with.
My point exactly.
I haven't
K-Fed.
watched the Britney documentary. I'll need to get into that to see how his star is portrayed.
That's a good point. That might be a horribly dated joke at this point.
Let's not jump
Oh shit!
anybody. Everyone
I don't. For a disclaimer, Cameron doesn't keep up with local world events, especially not ones that are dated circa 2001.
The views of Cammy McGrath and Lewis Finley do not necessarily reflect the views of Thomas Simpson and whatever. So just insulating ourselves for future reference. Anyway, shall we just veto Scott Putski versus Riggs?
We can only if we can mention the fact that this is the only ever second time I've seen a Scott Putski match.
Yeah, because obviously the first time we saw Bad Blood '97 when his knee proceeded to jump out of his leg.
I think it was Ground Zero, but let me be pedantic.
If you're having a match and they're talking about your dad, who wasn't even Ivan Putski's like influential, but he's not like a star. He's not a star. You know what I mean? Like, you're not doing great. Like, they're trying hard to get you over because what you're currently doing isn't getting you over, basically. NWO.
Just moving on to the Scott Hall return. With Scott Hall coming out of the limo and that, and he's
with a glass of alcohol.
Surrounded by NWO cohorts. I thought, to be in a limo during a hot July night in Atlanta, surrounded by Rick Rude and Mr. Perfect. Actually, I got that kind of sad feeling when I saw Rick Rude and Kurt Hennig right next to one another. I thought, oh, fuck. But I wish they were still with us.
I think the thing that's kind of scary about them two is they looked like $1 million. And even by this point, Scott Hall looked like he was having some issues.
Yeah.
Kind of. The way he walked, the way he gestured as well. I'm fully of the mind that was real alcohol in that glass. There's a reason why we only see him periodically from here on in, no matter where he shows up.
Mm-hmm.
I am trying to get my timeline right here, but do you remember they had a storyline on WWF at the time where Hawk was turning up, like inebriated? This storyline is quite similar. It's basically, we've got a guy here who clearly has alcohol and substance issues, so we're going to write it in the storyline and let him get absolutely blasted as part of his character. Now, I think these storylines weren't too far apart from each other, but somebody's done it first and the other person's went, that's a good idea.
But there's two different ways of approaching it. I feel like WCW was very much off the time wherein alcoholism wasn't treated as seriously as it is now. I feel like it was like party. It wasn't like alcoholism. Whereas I feel like the Road Warriors was like alcoholism and substance abuse. Like, this guy has a problem. If this was on the edge, and I'm not making a Hawk pun. Is it Hawk, the one that jumped off the?
It was Hawk.
I'm not making a pun.
Sorry, what you mean pushed off the back time?
They definitely went too far. The feds.
No. The terms of the presentation of the story, but the fact that in reality we are saying we're going to let you turn up at TV in character and just get blasted in real life.
That's horrible too.
The end result is still the same, and I think the talk storyline was a lot more crass. But at the same time, with Scott Hall was saying, just turn up steaming if you want. It's fine. We'll just make it part of your character.
Whereas, as horrible Vince is, I can't see him doing that. But to his own end, like, I just don't want a steamer cutting about. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's all horrible. It's all horrible. And I felt quite bad watching this, to be honest with you.
Yeah, there was a sort of, but hindsight's a wonderful thing to have on it. All the Scott Hall stuff just felt a bit, oh, God. Because knowing what we know now in like the Razor's Edge documentary and that, it's free to watch on the network now. It is a bit like, oh, sorry, that man just woke up feeling absolutely horrible and obviously went to bed feeling like $1 million and woke up feeling like death, I'm sure. But, all chemically induced. Right, Jericho versus Ultimo Dragon. Had potential, but there wasn't really given a lot of time to breathe either, though. There's a lot of time just kind of rushed.
Too rushed.
I feel like it needs to be there. It just needs to be done differently. It needs to be given more room. And then, like, if you cut the Johnny Swinger and Chavo match out and then talk about that in a few days on Thunder, something like that, and let Chris Jericho and Ultimo Dragon have a good match to keep me interested, and then also put over the Malenko feud again.
Mm-hmm. Well,
like,
the third act of this is completely thrown out, so that it can build up the Malenko versus Jericho thing.
I know, but like I'm saying, still do that, but let's like actually have the match still. Like, just a bit more.
Malenko comes out and starts ripping out Jericho's extensions, and all I could think was, is this some kind of deep cut Brett versus Shawn reference or something like that? Like, what the hell are we doing here?
It's possible.
I think if you want to make those connections, then sure. But personally, I think it's more that like Jericho is quite a vain rocker guy kind of thing. Thinks he's the best. He's that heel. And then I think they just wanted like a bit of brutality in it without anyone having to show any sort of claret and whatever sort of thing. I think they just wanted to raise the stakes a little bit personally.
Yeah, it worked for me. I liked it.
I think we should do what WCW should have done and just cut out the Johnny Swinger versus Chavo discussion.
Yes.
And
of course, let's move right on to Disco Inferno and Alex Wright versus Public Enemy. Why not?
Well, I originally thought it was Disco versus Alex Wright. And the minute they got in dancing together, I was like, no, wait a minute, what's happening here? The power of dance has just overcome heel face dynamic.
I didn't mind Alex Wright as a character and wrestler.
I remember him more round about the era of when Hogan came in, as opposed to this era, where he had the leather jacket and stuff. Do you know what I mean? No, like
that came later. He came out like the goth.
No, not that one. Not that one. Jesus Christ! I meant the normal-looking leather jacket. Just his gimmick was just I am a dancing Berliner, and then it was a bit more fun-loving and it was cool, whatever. This was a bit more homoerotic this time round, I think. To be fair, you're always dancing on that line, but but. I feel like they really dropped the ball with Alex Wright. I think he was quite talented, to be honest.
What happened to Alex Wright? Did he ever get picked up by TNA, or did he just quietly?
Do you know? Somebody posted something on Twitter about him the other day, actually. I'll need to find that. I can't remember. He still looks absolutely. He looks jacked, man. He looks great.
Good for Alex Wright.
No wellness policy for him.
I'm going to Google that to continue, but I'm going to come back to it because I did see something the other day.
I liked that. I don't mind Public Enemy, but literally at this point, they feel like that. Like it feels like they wanted to get the Dudley Boys and they said no.
Well, that all came up a lot. Like they were a precursor to Team 3D and that. To be fair, Public Enemy looked like 80% of the attendance in that arena.
I think to be fair, you could argue that Dudley Boys stole Public Enemy's gimmick. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't think they've done it as well as the Dudley Boys did. They're not as hype men as they believe to be. and nor are they. Well, I'm not saying that the Dudley Boys are ring technicians, but Public Enemy aren't either. I love the table spot with the double tables. Could you imagine if one of them was that solid table?
Oof.
Like he jumps from that height and the second one doesn't give her something like that. Like,
Yeah, Rock actually does a senton. Good on him. Who would have thought?
it was cool because it was a high one, because obviously
Yeah.
there's not a lot of actual space between the ring and the guardrail. It was really impressive. That was the highlight, and it obviously was the crescendo moment that was meant to be the highlight.
Oh, we completely bypassed the moment with Hogan, where he's got his NWO cohorts in the locker room and he's threatening to, we're going to get Malone, we're going to get Malone. And you've got Big Show, you've got Scott Steiner, you've got Mr. Perfect, you've got all these guys in the back, and you've got Bret Hart, the guy who they just paid $2.5 million over a 3-year span to get, or no, actually it was $2.5 million a year. And the highlight of his interaction in this episode is just, I'm going to get Malone. I'm going to get Malone. I'm going to get that Malone.
It's so sad watching Bret Hart in WCW.
It is, but you know, at Bash at the Beach, if I'm not mistaken, the pay-per-view after this, his match at Bash at the Beach 98 was Bret Hart versus Booker T for the TV title, and that was an absolute classic. An absolute 5-star if ever I've seen one.
A classic would infer that people remember it and love it. I don't think anyone remembers it. We love it. Like when we happen to do a podcast and talk about it, but the reality is it is a shame because the problem is he shouldn't be fighting for the TV title, is what we're saying. He's Bret Hart, and we all know what would eventually happen, and he wasn't given much room before that.
They just dropped the ball for the start with Bret Hart, and Bischoff tries to defend it and say, well, Bret wasn't kind of any ideas and stuff. It was always kind of a case of which creative got for him. It's like, do you know how the wrestling business works, mate? That's usually that's why you have creators and that.
Aye.
That's why you have bookers.
But then to be fair, that
I don't buy that for a second. The highlight of Bret's career was when he put the armour plate under his shirt and got spilled by gold, which was actually Bret's idea.
That was great.
Yeah.
I don't believe for a minute. And Bret's actually went and further said kind of subsequent shoots and said, how about sticking me with Benoit? How about sticking me with Booker T and that? And these big kind of long storylines, we'll write them and all that. And
could you imagine him versus Benoit?
Well, they did have
You've seen him versus Benoit?
Really?
There was the match the year after Owen died at the is it the Kemper Arena, the Kemper Stadium. The bit where Owen died, the year later, they had the kind of the memorial match.
It's an incredible match.
I'm going to watch that straight after this. That's
good. It's actually used in little odd bits over here. It's actually the frame of it makes an appearance in the opening of the Malcolm in the Middle.
Yes,
is that what that's from? Oh yeah.
Benoit.
I can't believe I've never noticed that. Well, I have, but I forgot it.
Yeah.
Do you remember the WCW used to be on Channel 5 in the 90s? It was.
I've heard about that. Obviously, I wasn't old enough to.
Oh yeah, good. I keep forgetting I'm a bit older. But I didn't have Sky. You know what I mean? So like, whenever I had the chance to watch wrestling, I would devour anything in terrestrial TV, for example. And I remember like Friday night sitting watching this match, and it finished. And I went, I may have just seen one of the greatest matches ever. What the fuck? This is on Channel 5. But it also released it for the Bret Hart DVD as well.
Yeah.
Can I just quickly put over the fact that I just feel like that's a B show move, personally. Being on the free TV, like AEW right now is on channel ITV, right? It's on ITV. Bellator's just signed an MMA, the B Show MMA League is just signed to be Freeview on BBC. I just think it's so like the you can market all you want as to be in this great thing, but in reality, it's because you can't actually charge for your program, really. Like I'm sitting here paying for the network BT Pass to watch WWE. And UFC. Do you know what I mean? Whenever I hear that, I'm like, fuck, man. I would just rather not put it on. I would rather make people work hard to get my show than fucking, I don't know.
WWE did just sign some kind of renewal deal to stream their show somewhere. I forget the name of it now, obviously, but there was a story about a couple of weeks.
It's Peacock. It's NBC. Yeah, aye. But again, you need to pay for it. That's what I'm saying. Like, whereas Bellator is giving out Bellator, AEW and stuff's giving out their program away for free,
which is interesting because that's kind of the theme of this show.
Yeah, it's not only do they not only do like thematically and storytelling do they just try to do something different, but even just from a business standpoint, if one says white, the other says black, and goes different directions. But it's almost cutting your nose off to spite your face. Look how historically this has worked out for everyone else, kind of thing. I hope more for AEW. They seem to be killing it. They seem to be wiping the floor of WWE, at least with actual wrestling fans, not just people that buy toys. Just need to see what happens, though.
I think that's the thing with AEW is like, and this is a business model. They are only interested in a niche market of wrestling fans. They're looking for the purest wrestling fan. They want to know guys who watch. They want fans who watch IWGP and New Japan and stuff like that. That's their target audience. But that's instantly where they're going to fail, because if you're only going to appeal to a small selection of hardcore wrestling fans, how does your business grow?
Yeah, how does it keep going as well? That's what WWE is faced with, because they've been going the longest. They need to constantly keep finding wrestling fans, which is a lot about what this NBC deal's been about. Has been trying to target a new audience that they're not actually hitting right now. They realize the network's too insular, whereas they need to actually attract more people, because we're either going to get bored of it or we're going to grow old and die. And then who's paying their bills? You know what I mean? So
they also relaunched in India and had a show on the network the other week when they'll showcase a lot of young Indian stars. And they had them fighting guys like AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre on that. This was like a great proper show, and it was it's basically about NXT India essentially they're kind of promoting. And yeah, that's that market right away. If they can tap back into that, they're laughing.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Disco Inferno, Alex, right? 5 out of 4 stars.
Yeah, 6 and 3/4 stars out of 4.
I had a disclaimer actually. I'm kind of only offensive about. I actually like Eddie Bischoff. I read his book. I read the Nitro book and stuff like that. I like his podcast. But when it comes to the Bret Hart thing, I'm biased.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think all of us are just like, fuck you for what you've done to my boy. Like, we're all Don Corleone. What have they done?
To pin that entirely on Bischoff, I think I'm not entirely sure. I don't think Bischoff was. We make out that Bischoff was like the grandleader calling all the shots and stuff like that. I think his hand may have been forced a little with certain aspects. He
had a lot of people to answer to.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It's a television company that owned a wrestling product.
I'm pretty sure in Bret's documentary that they actually say the original reason for signing him was that they were going to make him the star of Thunder. Like Nitro was going to be Hogan and Thunder was going to be Bret, and he was going to be like
that.
Yeah, because they wanted Thunder to be like not a B show. They wanted Thunder to be like Nitro,
like you said, yeah. Aye.
And the Hitman was going to be the Thunder Man, and Hogan was going to be the Nitro Man, and that would have kept them away from one another long enough to.
I'm sure they didn't want to pay him $2.5 million a year to do nothing, but something happened. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right, moving on to Scott Hall versus Goldberg in the can you call this the sub-main event, because it is the thing that sets up the main event? But
yeah, I would say it's a cool. I would say it's a cool main event. Right, Nitro as well, because Nitro had that kind of strange turnover, like at the third hour. So this is like the main event of the first part of Nitro. And then you've got the second event.
We know in retrospect that these guys do not like one another now. I don't know how they felt about one another then. Their chemistry is a bit lacking, and this I was going to say. I didn't feel like they clicked particularly well.
Have you watched the Goldberg Who's Next thing on the network?
Yeah. Yes, I'm glad we've all seen that, because
it's very not sold on Scott or Kevin.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like I want to side with Scott on this, although he was kind of not on. This, if anything, shows how tragic Scott's situation is that you can see he's not up to the task. Like, he's not in the right place, but an absolute vet pro to the end kind of thing. You can see the main problem with this match is Goldberg shitting himself and just speeding through all his spots, and then Scott Hall doing that old school sort of like, to the point of being a bit mean. Like, you can see Scott Hall looking at him going, slow the fuck down, son. And I mean, the problem with their contentious relationship is that Goldberg could have took that either way. And this is the thing with Goldberg that I don't quite trust either. I mean, I can tell the guy's got a good heart.
Scott is actually bigger than Bill, in this, which really caught me off guard. I had completely revisionist history there. I forgot Scott was actually bigger. However, to pin this entirely on Scott would be a disservice to Scott. Like, there's a bit where Bill's supposed to Irish whip Scott into the ropes, but he set it up entirely too close to the ropes. So Scott just like bounces off the ropes and then falls backward. And Bill tries to catch his head, and Scott just tumbles to the floor in that bit. It wasn't enough breathing room. Like, I'm not going to pin this on Scott. I was going to say it was a fault of.
And let's remember, like, there's been some freak accidents in wrestling. That could have been just as vicious as anything else you've seen in the ring. Yeah. I just want to point out that, like I was saying there, is that Goldberg, especially nowadays, because he still has to be put over by the Fed, is painted as this family man who wants to be a hero to the kids and blah, blah, blah. He still strikes me as a bit of an arsehole. Like, in this instance here, to me, maybe there is a reason they've got a contentious relationship, and it could be the fault of either party kind of thing, and we know the history of Scott Hall and whatever. But see, at the end of the day, if we were to go back to put our pro wrestling caps on, Scott's the vet. Scott's done his time. Scott's proved that he knows more than Goldberg.
Oh, Scott was the AWA man.
Look at Goldberg. Look at Goldberg in this match, and you can almost see him looking at him going, "Look, mate, you're a has-been. I'm about to go over for the belt. I'm going to keep at the pace I'm going." Almost. I know obviously he's not saying that, but he takes everything that fucking Scott's trying to tell him and just takes it as almost like attitude. He's like, "You're just talking shit to me. You're not actually."
That Who's Next documentary is unintentionally hilarious to see the cutting in between Kevin Nash and Goldberg. Like, you could tell, like, they have a weird 50. Like, I've seen interviews with Kevin where he's like, "Yeah, I love Bill. Like, I talk shit about him, but at the end of the day, I love him." And then in that documentary, he's like, they had to edit in Goldberg. They had to dub in the Goldberg chants because the crowds were chanting "Goldberg sucks." Yeah, like, and he was talking about, like, you know, the streak. The streak, 1 week it would go from like 36 to 57, and 1 week it would like but I'm pretty sure Hugh Morris was 3 of those 170.
Yeah,
like, that doesn't really count, does it?
But I mean, is that him just kind of like being a bit of a dick for a joke about the camera, because it's still wrestling at the end of the day. If he's going to start criticising the logic of pro wrestling storylines, where do we stop? I mean, I've seen Kevin Nash as Diesel be dragged to hell with Undertaker. Yeah. So if he's going to complain about the count, escape fees.
If I want to be a mark here, if this was a martial arts league, it wouldn't matter if he's faced the same opponent, and it would still count as a victory on his record. So shut the fuck up. It might be Hugh Morris, to be fair, but it still counts. Okay.
Well, they do the thing that's interspliced throughout the episode. Here's like number 25. Here's number 50. Here's number 75. And like Glacier and Conan are 2 of them. And like you're not really selling Goldberg versus Hogan here particularly well, are you?
I like Conan.
Don't disrespect to Conan.
My missus doesn't understand that, but I named my dog after him. Okay. She thinks it's something else.
Regarding that, your next documentary, I think Goldberg even does take responsibility in that. It does mention the fact that, like, Scott Hall said, "Oh, what you doing, bro?" It kind of takes a piss at me, but it also admits he froze.
Yeah, I just
good stuff.
I just feel like if this was not the era it was, because let's be real, no one would actually get a push the way that Goldberg did if this was any other era of wrestling. Sorry, before. Now it's fucking, they'll do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
But before, you need to pay your fucking dues, right? And that man, Scott Hall, regardless of what condition he's in at that point, has more than paid his dues. The business he done with the WWF at that point, and even WCW, he deserves respect, no matter how much of an arsehole he is. And he was fucking bang on. It's been said in wrestling time and time again. If you think you're going too fast, you slow down. And if you think you're going too slow, you slow down again.
Yeah.
And that just, to me, like, I mean, fucking hell, we're in 2021 and we're still questioning if Goldberg can wrestle. Never mind fucking this year. You know what I mean? I used to be a big Goldberg mark until I actually got into wrestling. There you go.
I'm a big Scott Hall fan as well. Like, there's even the case of him putting Jericho over when the office told him distinctly not to.
Yeah.
Scott would sell for the smaller guys. He would put the little guys over, and that at the end of the day, like Scott mentioned it in numerous shoots, like it's a paycheck to him. Yeah. Like as long as the check clears, he'll raise his leg for anybody. sounded a bit filthy unintentionally, but yeah.
God, he hit some lows.
Oh, we
consider
love Scott.
consider what Scott Hall's Twitter account's been like in recent
Well,
years. You know, I think the guy's got a vice. He needs to find a vice somewhere, as long as he's healthy.
God bless you, son.
Right,
dude, fuck. Sorry, yeah. I'm just thinking the next 3 matches are completely fucking useless. Sorry.
Yeah. Psychosis
Holy shit.
Juventud Guerrera. There's a run-in by Raven's Flock. Okay. Right. Two really talented guys, Juventud and Psychosis, but
yes.
Again, I've not got much. Apparently, I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but apparently Juventud went on like a massive power trip during his last couple of years with WCW, where he started like comparing himself to like The Rock and Austin.
Yeah, I remember that. The juice.
Right, so after this we've got Jim Neidhart versus DDP.
Do we?
Yeah.
No. Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus the Giant.
Oh, fucking hell, so it is. I've done it again. God forbid.
You've robbed me of my moment of being able to say, why the fuck is Jim Duggan still here? Jesus Christ. And the Giant who...
Oh, Kevin Green. Jesus Christ, you're completely right to drag that up. I buried it up until I forgot that there was the running where Kevin Green and the Giant have the suggestion of a square go.
Is there a match in this where there isn't a run-in?
Not many.
No.
Public Enemy.
Yeah, the guy outside.
That ends in a table spot.
But even that, you had the third guy with...
Right,
right, didn't you? Tokyo Night or something. I can't remember.
Oh, yeah, it was Tokyo Magnum.
Tokyo Magnum, aye.
Tokyo Magnum. Yeah, Jim Duggan versus the Giant. Go off, Cammy. Just explain all that great fucking reversals and chain linking, and they were on their knees. And...
Jim Duggan is only there. Jim Duggan is only there because he's Hogan's pal, and the Giant's there because he's a large man. And Jim Duggan can wrestle. He's Jim Duggan after all, but at the end of the day, is severely out of place in this product at this point. He must have had a fantastic fucking contract because God knows why else he's there. The Giant had to go back to developmental once he was signed to the Fed. That's all you need to fucking say. He's not good enough. But then again, he was in the Dungeon of Doom, so I love him.
Yeah, and he could vault the top rope.
He looked great here. He looked fucking brilliant here. He never looked that good again.
He could move.
Yeah, he could move.
Obviously, like when he went to the Fed, he was told to kind of work that Andre big man style where you never really leave your feet until you're supposed to. Like the match, there was the thing like when he was partnering with Scott Steiner against Bagwell and Rick Steiner at Halloween Havoc '98. He actually does a top rope leg drop. Drop kick. Sorry, drop kick.
And I get
drop kick.
I get how dangerous it is for a guy that size to do a move like that, and they say like, yeah, big men should work the big men style. You mentioned the kind of Andre thing, but do you not see Andre wrestle in Japan in the 70s?
Yeah,
but I think that's half the problem. That's half the problem, though. And as cold a heart as Vince McMahon has, he knows when he's got an investment, and he doesn't want it and fucking injured half the time. So that's why they work the big man style. And to be honest, that's what I want. I don't.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm a 6 foot tall guy who spent a very low amount of time over 21 stone, and I am paying for that now physically. I am riddled with injuries over the small amount of time I was over 21 stone. I can't fucking imagine the problems they've got. I can't. Yeah. My posture's gone. My posture's fucked, and it's just because I was fat for like 2 years, and that's it. And these guys are sitting doing all this. Like, it is unbelievable. You know, it's crazy.
No, I agree with you. That's a fair point.
Yeah. Why is Jim Neidhart still wearing Heart Foundation?
Yeah, still wearing the WWF gear, isn't he? At least you could make the excuse that they put the NWO shirt on Brett to kind of throw that stuff away. But no, Neidhart's still wearing the 97.
Plus, he's Bret Hart. There's a difference between Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart. I love Jim Neidhart, but up until this point, he spent half the 90s smoking crack with the British Bulldog.
What this kind of highlight is the fact that Jim was above all else a tag team guy.
Yeah.
Like, had they give him, I know the original plan was that there was a point in the 90s, I believe, when obviously Jim had got fired the first time when they were going to bring him back, and then they were going to partner him up with Owen. and they were going to be like the new Hart Foundation and that, and then that whole plan went to kibosh because
That could have been cool.
I really would have been cool, but yeah, my whole thing was during this was God, Jim needs somebody else, and I'm not saying he's a shite wrestler. He's not.
Yeah.
He's great.
No.
But it's like he suits a dual kind of role.
Yeah, some people are just better tag team wrestlers.
Let's be real right now. He's if this was again older WCW, Diamond Dallas Page would be facing a jobber right now, and that's essentially what Neidhart is at this point. Is he's doing the job for Dallas because Dallas is needing to look really good for Bash at the Beach, and that's a shame. He deserves more than that.
It's weird how they managed to ensnare the entire Hart Foundation apart from Owen. Like Bulldog went, Jim went, Brett went. Obviously, Owen and that. But yeah, fuck, it's what it is. Anyway, let's just move on to Sting and Luger versus Kidman and Sick Boy. Not the Johnny Lee Miller character from Trainspotting, but Kidman got his own lackey who's much
It's
bigger.
a damn shame, Lewis. It's a damn shame. It would have been
It would have been better if they
what we
just
had.
Trainspotting gimmick.
Lex Luger looked happy here. I was kind of okay to see it. Yeah,
because he knows he's going to be out in 30 seconds. Ding, ding, ding.
Hey, I like seeing Lex Luger happy. I'm very much looking forward to the Icons documentary coming up of him. That I enjoyed the Yokozuna one. I've been trying my best to get into Luger. I mentioned to Lewis before this, my wrestling coach is into Lex Luger in a big bad way, and neither of us can figure out why. But apparently he's only exclusively watched everything up until he was the narcissist. So like old WCW, because I've only seen him after he was the narcissist. So like the Lex Express, God, and this era, and at which point it looks like he doesn't want to fucking be there. So whenever I see him, like I really, really enjoyed Sting and Lex Luger when they were a face tag team, but then Luger was heel. So like Sting would be like, yeah, and then Luger would be like, yeah, and then the second he turns away, he's like, fuck you, man. That was the best run Lex had at this point. And
did we ever get an official reason as to why Lex never had the Winged Eagle during his years with the Fed?
He just didn't have the charisma, I think, in the work.
I know, but they had him co-win the Rumble with Brett. They had him main event SummerSlam. Like there must have been something.
You need to remember how desperate the times were. I think like they put a lot of. They really needed something to work, and then Lex didn't. So it just kind of started off like that, and it just got from bad to worse. They had a few stinkers around about that time when they were pushing them to the moon. By the time, sorry.
I was going to say the Lex Express and things like that. It was quite clear they were looking for a new Hogan and Lex Luger.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether Lex Luger could have been the new Hogan or not is up for debate, but the fans weren't wanting that.
No.
Maybe it was just the fans that killed the run, I guess.
No, Lex definitely contributed to that, and that's also the thing. It's one of those instances where you can't even say that the Fed did, because like they gave him every fucking chance under the sun, which is one of the reasons why I actually have a bias against him, is because like his promos, some of his in-ring work, it was like you're getting offered a chance that not a lot of guys get offered. You're gonna be the man if you want, and it didn't seem like he embraced it. I could be wrong. We'll see.
No, I think you're right. I think that at the end of the day, he could tend to, like, he would say things in that were like, I don't need this and stuff like that. Like, there's a story I'm positive Jim Cornette tells in that, like, where Luger was supposed to show up at some event and Luger was like, no, I'm not doing that, and just like walked out and stuff like that. So maybe it could have been a case of commitment issues or whatever.
So some guys, I look back at, like Scott Hall, for example, and go, how did that guy never have the belt,
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can
to be
see...
fair, Scott never won.
No. But you can also see why he never had the beef. That guy was good enough to have it. You look at some other guys, can't think about it off the top of my head, but you go, how did that guy have the belt? And a guy like Luger, I never look back at Luger and go, why didn't he have it? I just go, it was there, it was away.
I think
it's not a missed opportunity for me. Look at the guys I had the belt during that time. I don't see Lex Luger beating any of them for it.
Well, I think
even though
people see Luger in '94 and they see the body and that, and they imagine the Winged Eagle going very, very well with it. Like the
Oh,
top
it looks like Vince has created a cosplay character for himself.
Yes.
You know, based on his own crazed, diseased mind. And, I mean, it's like a slam Yokozuna, and it looks like he was going to be the guy, but I just think it was, as kind of say, the fans weren't interested. I think Luger's attitude wasn't helping, and they kind of went, you know what, let's look at the way they kind of tied a turn here. Brett's that guy.
Yeah. And Brett
Again.
Shaw remain our guy. Anyway, right, getting on to our creme de la creme, our main event. It was good enough to be, fucking called out by Michael Buffer. Goldberg versus Hogan.
How much does that show cost?
More than, I'm pretty sure it is documented that the show cost more than they pulled in at the gate, which again, they could have made more at the gate if they had had the foresight to have advertised it in advance.
Strong.
So just, yeah.
I mean, you've got about 60,000 fans for a TV show.
Yeah.
They didn't charge a lot back then either. It's not like nowadays we're paying 50 quid a go. You're talking like 20. Like,
plus, how many were paid fans and how many were like corporate and things like that? And competition. There's so many kind of factors to it. That Nitro book I've got, I don't know if you've read it. I would recommend it if you've not. It's outstanding. It's so in depth. I mean, it's the kind of book Eric Bischoff endorsed, even though it's not like it's just sucking up his arsehole all the way through it. It's because it backs up everything it says. Everything is annotated in reference. It's not just a source said. It's this guy who worked in WCW said. This executive, this guy in marketing. It's an incredible book. It really is.
You don't get that a lot in wrestling.
No. But yeah, getting into the actual match. Now, to be fair, like we have said bad things about Terry Bollea, the human being. Maybe not all completely unjustified, however.
If you try to say that my name for this podcast is a reference to Hulk Hogan.
I wouldn't dare say that. You may very well have a scab that you've cleaned up or whatever.
I'm sorry, but I just want to point out that we've actually made fun of the character Hulk Hogan and the person Terry Bollea. Well, we've done both.
We have done both, but to be fair, now money on the table, no matter what they gave him, he made Goldberg look like $1 million here.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, he did sell.
Okay, I agree with both of you, but I'll let Cameron speak first.
So Terry has a style. He has two styles. He's on his back, or he's swinging big. He's swinging for the fence. He's Babe Ruth. Like he's the big hits. He has no other styles. That's it. To say that he done well, I don't think he put any extra effort leading into it. I think he maybe swallowed a lot of pride. But I feel like the only reason we're in this situation is because he is still involved in the biggest program in the company at that point, which is A-Rod and Dallas and whatever.
I was going to say the thing that this reminded me the most of was Hogan and Warrior from Mania 6.
Yeah, definitely.
Comparisons were made with you. The fact that it even ended with both of them having 2 fucking belts.
Yeah,
was a bit on the nose, but yeah, I even felt like I got a lot of Warrior vibes from Goldberg in general. The behind the scenes, person and the man in front of the camera.
I mean, it doesn't matter what the ring action in this match is, to be fair. Let's be honest. It's how hot the crowd are, and Bobby Heenan is incredible in commentary.
Fuck it. The minute Hogan gets hoisted up in the jackhammer, Bobby starts.
It's a spear. It's for the spears. Get him up! Get him up there!
He's got him!
Plus, how many run-ins with it?
What was it?
The run-ins again.
Oh, yeah, but to be fair, the run-ins get diffused. It's like they suggest there's going to be a run-in, and then they have a run-in on top of the run-in to kibosh the run-in, so it cancels itself out. Mr. Perfect runs out only to be followed by Post Malone and DDP, who quickly dispose of him. And it's almost like there's a discernible moment when the minute Mr. Perfect gets caught on his arse, the crowd just, I mean, if they weren't already what I ought to begin with, they go like Magna. It's oh God, honestly, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and the problem I feel, they could have went 2 ways after this. They could have went, now we have create a character here with the belt. He's a blank template. doesn't really speak. He just comes in, squashes things, doesn't even wrestle really. So what does that say about the people we're putting up against? Because clearly people love to see the NWO get beat. So does that mean that they're passé? But instead of doing that, they went, clearly the people love this. We need more NWO. We need more Goldberg just doing the same fucking thing. Let's go for it. Let's rocket them both to the moon simultaneously and we'll just figure it out later. Like,
I suppose the thing is, I mean, that was the thing about Goldberg, though. You would tune into his matches hoping he was going to steamroll somebody. And you're dealing with, he's obviously very, very good at the time. And he's not really much anything but it's jobber. But then you see him against more recognisable names, and then he's winning the US title and stuff. And it's like, I remember watching like WCW at this time thinking, I'm invested in this streak because every match you think Goldberg's going to win. But I tuned in to watch Goldberg do his thing. I wanted to see him just steamroll people because there was something quite legit about him. Not as a wrestler, but just a force, as a bulldozer.
Because all his moves were actually they were high impact, like it looked like they hurt kind of thing. Which that's what I'm saying to you. I think that's my main problem with him. Like, you're not actually fucking doing a thing here. Like, you know, you look great, but come on.
Well, I mean, a lot of that. No, I don't want to say a lot of that. There was a lot of people in Bill's ear, as he actually mentions in the next documentary. There's actually a match I think we either had with like Bobby Eaton or something like that, where he came off the top rope, and kicked him or something like that, and the minute he got back into Gorilla, Eric said, "Don't ever do that again."
Yeah.
So,
but then it's because he can't. This is the thing. It's because he fucking can't, and that bothers me at the same time. I'm being
a lot of the magic of Goldberg was in the entrance. It was in the presentation.
Yeah.
The fact he was surrounded by 10 cops.
But this is half my problem. This is half my problem with WCW is that the presentation is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But the substance of it, the actual, when you get down to, if you were to take all of that presentation away, what are you actually left with in regards to being able to watch wrestling? That's my problem with this. Really, because I mean, I was taking it, and because it was the big thing for me. Because, and believe me, like if I was to keep kind of churning through the 1980s of WCW, I'd have kept watching it. See, now I'm going to switch it off once Hogan joins, because from there, because I mean, I couldn't take another Dungeon of Doom run. That's for one. And secondly, if I know that this is what I've got to look after, is to see it as a spectacle. When I first turned it on, my mind was blown. I was like, this looks incredible. But then as each match started to sort of come away, I went, there's nothing actually here though going on, really. Like, I don't have to watch this to know the crack, really. So, and that's my main and for the fact that it's 2 hours. Like, if that had happened in an hour, I'd have a much different judgment. But the fact they made me sit there for 2 hours for nothing, I had a big problem with that. Then again, if it's my man Dan Severn blowing through them all, and of course, I'd be flying the flag, but that's a thing for another day. Had to mention them once. It's been a while.
Absolutely, man. You get your shit in.
Thank you.
Well, I would say as well, I mean, look, WCW for me peaked in 97. I think wrestling in general peaked in 97. In terms of both companies, that's my favourite runs. It's a shame because Sting, who's one of my favourite wrestlers, barely wrestled in 97. But he also didn't have to. Because that's the spectacle aspect.
Now we're discussing him. I'm not the biggest fan in the world of Wolfpack or Sting. Like, to me, he's too much of the surfer dude's thing.
To be fair, I don't think they had much for him either, though, and that's the problem. I think one of the main problems with this is like the lack of fresh ideas. They just keep going. NWO. Yeah.
NWO Red.
New Coke.
You go NWO.
That went so well.
But it's like when you get kind of like Goldberg beating Hogan, and you're getting that toppling of NWO type feeling for the shot. You'll probably hearing screaming like, "Yes, WCW has won here." This isn't the first time Hogan's been beat with a belt. We had Sting do this a few months before. It didn't get that payoff.
Relied on the whole Neil Patrick 1, 2, 3.
But that's my point. No, we didn't have that. We didn't have that same. We should have had that same payoff. That the guy who came back with his sole purpose was to destroy the NWO. Goldberg's wasn't. Goldberg's was just to win matches. But Sting came back to destroy the NWO. That was his sole purpose. And he didn't.
Yeah.
On the belt.
They should have. Like I think we spoke like this is literally what I was saying earlier. It should have been Goldberg destroys the NWO and that's it. Full stop. Let's find a new thing to do. That I'm not saying it would have saved them. There's too much politics and corporate stuff going on.
The money, the contracts, and that had already the boat was already starting to sink.
But they still could have ran away with something to keep those ratings up, and at the end of the day, the ratings kind of guided the ship. If you're talking about it sinking, if the ratings were there, they still could have got away with a lot. I think they could have saved it from Vince. I think if they had stopped.
Bischoff talks about this quite a lot in his podcast and that, but that Nitro book mentions it. It's basically WCW was always doomed to fail because when the mergers happened with AOL and Time Warner,
I suppose
people then became in charge. We're not interested in WCW. They're not interested in the fact they always at this point was hemorrhaging money as well. So they're looking, let's just get rid of this. But a lot of them say they genuinely believe WCW could have turned itself around and done well, and still they wanted rid of it. Now, how it went to Vince is a bit of a. It's a straight. I couldn't do it justice. You need to read the story, to be honest with you.
There's some legitimate legality issues involved with that. That's put into question, admittedly. But yeah, I may be going a bit far with that, but at the very least, they could have pulled some of it back.
You could have still got a better product for the next couple of years at least.
Yeah, I think so. It wouldn't have been as obvious an ending as it would become, kind of thing. Because there was a point where the writing was on the wall. For a while. I understand that when it did eventually happen, people were shocked, but it's almost just like how unbelievable it was when it happened, sort of thing. I don't want to go down this tangent too much because I actually need to get ready to go. But I just want to say that I've basically hit my points. I think this could have been an okay show if it was an hour long. Even though it said nothing. It wouldn't have had to have said anything if it was an hour long. But the fact that it's 2 hours long, I need substance there. You know, it can't just be all carbs. I need some protein. There needs to be something going on.
And if you're going to have 60,000 fans in attendance, that's great for your main event. That's great for Goldberg winning the strap and getting the reaction he did. But you're going to throw Ivan Putski to try and appease the crowd during that time.
Ivan Putski would have been something to be seen.
Polish hammer.
You'd have been better for Ivan Putski with that, right?
They talked about him more during the match. He wasn't even signed to WCW. He held the NWA belts, but he wasn't even in WCW. He was in the Fed.
They give you a great opening match and then nothing for about 2 hours.
Yeah.
And as good as Goldberg and Dean Malenko is, that match was not going to keep you entertained in the back of your mind. That wasn't going to keep you at a high.
Thomas, I was satiated for about 20 minutes. The second, and then by the third DDP promo, I was gone out of there. Look, there's a big difference between watching a 1986 episode of WCW where Tully Blanchard comes out 7 times. You know why? I want to see Tully Blanchard come out 7 times. I don't give a feck about DDP coming out 7 times. The crowd at the time clearly had a ball, but almost looked like DDP was having a bigger ball than them. Mm-hmm. Hence the leaving through the crowds and the blah, blah, blah. And that just feeds into me loving the guy. But at the same time, there was nothing going on. They just kept reiterating the same shit every time. Mm-hmm. And Jesus, big fella, Malone can't do anything. He done better than most. He clearly put a big attempt at training and the moves and whatever. But talking, just
Right, guys. So in passing, I think we've already got Cammy's opinion on the episode as a whole. I'm assuming that you were kind of middling, Thomas, the 50%.
No, I mean it's not a great episode. It's a great main event. The payoff's excellent, but it's a tough road to get there.
A lot to slog through in the middle, I would say, in passing. Yeah.
It's a great network moment to fast forward to.
Yes. Yeah, it's literally actually a highlight. If you go to the bottom of the options bit of the episode, it literally says Goldberg Beast Hogan in front of 40,000 people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's worth watching
that. It's not even worth watching the match. It's worth watching the last minute of the match. To be fair.
Yeah. Was it not only a minute long? Anyway, right. So what I want to do, right, is if we are doing this again, which I imagine we will be, I don't know if we might have Cammy. I'm praying we do have Cammy next time. We're all hoping that we get Cammy next time. I would like to discuss it in the group chat ahead of time. Like, let's not tell people what we're going to do because we might not change course.
It's kind of like a free agent. It's kind of like a Brock Lesnar contract.
Yes.
Yeah.
If a pay-per-view overpowers us, then we feel the need to review it.
I just rock in with a ghetto blaster and knock his all over with some excellent power.
Absolutely.
You never know. Maybe I'll get the guys watching some wrestling, and then some real wrestling, not this 1990 date pish, and then.
Good with that. I'm good with that.
And then we can, and then you can bury me. That would be great if we could watch an episode of old Jim Crockett, and then you guys can take your turns at burying me.
Yeah,
that would be something to behold.
We'll have all of them.
For fuck's sake, you know.
See when Ollie comes back, me and Thomas aren't even going to be necessary. It's just going to be you two fucking King Kong and Godzilla. Like, we're not even
We're going to be sitting on Frogman, so we can tea, just drinking it.
Absolutely, guys. Right, I'm just going to sign off for now, and I'll let Cammy get back to his day. Until next time, fellas. Adios.
Thank you.
Relax.